All right, here we go. Welcome to the GBNO show, the Get Better Not Older show. I'm Dr. Rob Jones. This is my awesome wife, Shannon, the dietitian. And this is episode number 16. And as written by Shannon, it is the truth about fat loss, dispelling myths, and clarifying facts. So what you're going to get from us is a combined over 50 years of clinical experience, because we've been doing stuff a long time and we're getting old, which means we are getting wise. So I am your outside in guy.
And I'm the inside out gal.
All right. So let's jump into it. We've been talking about this a lot lately. I've been saying this for years and years and years. Because of social media, everybody's an expert because nobody is.
Yeah,
right?
and the interesting thing is, even when they are an expert in their field, I feel like, and I've tried to explain this to you and you kind of needed me to explain it, but even the experts in their field are just practicing in what I call their silo. In other words, they know a lot about this one subject, and then they're doing a podcast on it, or it's reported, or there's an Instagram post. And instead of being cognizant of how that message is being received to the layperson and if it's going to be confusing or not, I feel like it's getting worse. So you have PhDs who are great and they know a lot about whatever it is that they got a PhD in, but they don't have any clinical experience. You've got biohackers. That in itself is a completely different subject, but they are all reporting on health. And then you've got experts in certain fields, like it may be fructose they're talking about, or it may be blood sugar or this or that. And I think what has happened is, as I'm listening, I probably listen to anywhere from 5 to 7 different podcasts a week. And I search to find which subjects I want to see what people are saying. I want to see if it, does it apply to the research that I've done that week or the new studies that I've read, etc. And from that, my takeaway has been, wow, if I did not know as much as I do know about all of this, specifically fat loss, I would be super confused. So today's podcast is all about giving facts about what it is to lose fat, lose weight, and then where that correlates to what everybody else is reporting. So that's where we're starting today.
Okay, so the picture, just to summarize, people get online. They go, ooh, carnivore diet's going to fix me, make me lose weight. Oh, keto's going to fix me and make me lose fat and weight. Oh, I should go vegan. Oh, I should do this diet or that diet. You're going to normalize it and take out the broad stroke and help people go from point A to point B to point C.
Yeah, let me illustrate a few points here. Just in this week, these are the things that I heard experts reporting. So I was on a walk and I was listening to an actual expert that I respect, who is a great doctor. He's also is a clinician. But he said something that really bothered me, and I know what point he was trying to make, but I guess this is where I have issue, is when people are trying to take certain things just to sensationalize or to make a good post or to say something shocking or whatever. And in turn, it just causes confusion to the layperson, because here's this expert saying this, and then all of a sudden they take it to heart and don't take it into perspective or the context of where it is applicable. So he was making the point that he feels like everybody tries to do too much. There's so much information out there, and if people would just hone in on what's important, then they would do better on keeping their weight off. Well, he said, did you know that 10,000 steps is just made up? And he says it was a marketing slogan for somebody trying to sell a pedometer. And it really took flight and yada, yada, yada. And so this whole thing where everybody should be getting 10,000 steps is just a marketing slogan. There's no data behind it, which that is not true. That might be how it originated.
Sure.
I totally get that. However, there is a lot of great data on achieving 10,000 steps. And we just recently reported on it in one of our podcasts, the difference between getting 8,000 steps to 12,000 steps and what that does for decreasing disease risk, et cetera. Like, it was pretty astounding, the data that we presented. So I see what he was trying to say, and I think there was, I think you meant well by saying it, but then to somebody else who's listening who doesn't understand the bigger picture to that and know the data, I think that can be super confusing.
Yeah, so they're listening to that going, oh, so I shouldn't walk 10,000 steps a day? I'm wasting my time?
That's just a marketing slogan?
Right,
Well, no,
yeah.
It's not just a marketing slogan. There's a lot of great data behind that, and a lot of great data on walking, even just for fat loss.
Yeah.
So what, we're going to all of a sudden
Stop walking?
stop walking? Yeah, so that was one thing
Can
that
I make
had
a point
heard.
as well?
Yeah.
We have become so hyper-focused now because of social media. There's so much information out there, more than ever before. You can look up whatever you want, and you can turn into a plumber in a weekend, okay, if you really study hard. You're not going to have the skill set of a journeyman plumber, but you could do some basic plumbing. The idea is, though, you can find whatever you want.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we got to be careful that the information that's being presented isn't just cherry-picked to get an audience. And that, unfortunately, I think has created a hindrance to the end user who doesn't have a lot of experience and just wants to be healthy. They're going, okay, this person says that, this person says that. I'm just not doing any of it because none of it makes sense to me. So coming to some sort of conclusion, consensus that is actually basic is going to be very helpful. And that's where you're driving this today.
Yeah, and I think cherry-picked is a really good way of describing that, is that they take, that's what I mean by being in their silo. Like they're not looking globally how this message is perceived in the bigger picture. One of the ones that just threw me over the edge is this particular, and I looked this guy up, and he's some bodybuilder PhD who was saying that there's no difference between all of the seed oils, and it does not matter whatsoever when it comes to weight loss. Well, we just did a podcast on this as well, on the detriments of certain seed oils to your overall health. Okay, so he said he's talking specifically weight loss. Okay, well, newsflash. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that if you have a serving of fat is the same calories. Doesn't matter what type of fat that is, right? So he's just saying it's for the calories in versus calories out. It doesn't matter for fat loss if you eat seed oils. Any type of seed oil is a fat. Well, you and I know metabolically that is not the case.
Right.
So anyone listening to that is going to go, oh, you mean what Shannon and Rob presented, the whole podcast about seed oils?
Yeah. I should go ahead and eat canola oil and not worry about all these fried chicken fast food restaurants. I know the guy you're talking about. I forget his name. He's really big right now. Big jacked guy. Got even like a muscular temporalis right here, right? Bald.
Yeah, but he looks really unhealthy to me.
Well, he's even admitted he's on gear or steroids, basically. But whatever, he can do what he wants to do. And again, it's the information. You got to remember that he's coming from a bodybuilding standpoint, all right? I don't know if he really is necessarily concerned with getting better, not older. I don't know if he's concerned with, patients like we have that are 65, 70, and we're trying to teach them to stay out of an inflammatory state. Because, you may take the same calories of a good, healthy, organic olive oil and a crappy industrial processed canola oil, and they're going to be the same calories, but what's the detriment to the canola oil? What's it doing to your microbiome that is later going to affect your metabolism? What's it doing to your gut lining and potentially creating gap junctions where now you're getting an autoimmune response? So we got to take all that into account.
Well, and the thing is you're listening to this, and he's specifically trying to present the difference between facts and fiction when it comes to fat loss. Mm-hmm. What he could have easily said is, when we're talking specifically for fat loss, mm-hmm. this is how I see it.
Right.
Instead of, you sit there and you listen to that, and then you're like, wait, what? He has no issue with the seed oils. You forget that that's what he's talking mm-hmm. about, the way it's presented.
Yeah.
So this has just kind of been recently, I just noticed that, and I think it's just because, like you said, there are a lot of people online, so it's getting very congested and everybody's trying to get the attention.
Yeah.
Therefore, I guess just the purpose of this podcast is to present things in a way that clarifies what exactly is applicable to fat loss specifically, and then how does that play into everything else that's being reported? Whether, you have different silos of being who's presenting what. You've got the calories in versus calories out people. You have the macronutrient people. Should I be doing no carb, low carb, high carb? Mm-hmm. All, you know it. How does that play in? And metabolically, what is this? Some people are talking about controlling blood sugar and insulin. Mm-hmm. Some people are talking about exercise, and it's got to do this to lose weight. So today we're just going to look at it, and I actually created a visual. So for those that are listening, we will attach this in the notes so that they can look at this at another time. But I created a visual because actually I got home from listening, because I was on a walk listening to that podcast, the one about the seed oils. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like I had to double check myself here. I was like, okay, wait, I want to think about this globally. Like, yes, calories in versus calories out, but metabolically, once those calories are in our body, they do make a difference. And if that person is able to stay in a calorie deficit. So that's what I wanted to present today.
Okay. Well, Eric just put your little flow chart up there. It's pretty.
Thank you.
We have some frames in the way, but we can navigate around it.
And I'm not very good at creating these visuals. So this took, even though it looks very simplistic, it took a long time because I could never get the columns lined up.
I'd give you an A on the project.
Thank you. Okay, so here is where we're going to start. We are going to start with clarifying, if you are trying to lose fat, what is the bottom line that has to be the fact that is the bottom line when it comes to fat loss? To lose fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit.
Okay, so real life scenario. I am a 53-year-old guy. It is January 22nd. I'm going on spring break with my family this is hypothetical because we live in spring break land. In 7 weeks, I'm going on spring break to Florida or down in the Caribbean, and I need to lose some fat because I don't like my Christmas season paunch that is around my waist right now.
You mean like everybody's New Year's resolution right now?
Yeah. So, okay. So if I present it to you clinically, take it away. What do I need to do?
Well, so first you need to figure out how to be in a calorie deficit, because you cannot lose weight unless you are in a calorie deficit.
What does that mean? I don't understand. What is I don't know. I'm a lay person. I don't know what a calorie deficit is.
Getting ready to get into there. So you have what's called energy balance. So for you to maintain your current weight, you need so many calories a day to maintain your current weight.
Okay.
If you go over that, you will gain. If you go under that, you will lose. And you have to build up 3,500 calories one way or another to lose or gain a true pound of body fat. So if you came to me and said, in the next 7 weeks, I want to lose some weight before we go on spring break, I need to get you in a calorie deficit. So I am going to try to create a deficit in your needs under what your body needs to maintain its current weight. Mm-hmm. We try to, obviously we compound that. It gets up to 3,500 calories of a deficit. Then you lose a true pound of body fat.
And realistically, and tell me if this has changed, because I'm pretty sure it hasn't. But since I was in undergrad, taking my first nutrition courses way back in the early 90s, a pound to a pound and a half a week is really your best, most realistic way to lose weight and keep it off versus crashing 10 pounds a week and most likely yo-yoing it back up.
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
That is still the case. And that's just simple fat metabolism.
Okay.
And we've talked about this before, where your fat is super protective and it wants to keep you from starving. Mm-hmm. So when you start to deplete or shrink your fat storage, it sends your metabolism into, oh goodness, I better make some changes so he or she can conserve. Mm-hmm. And I better give them more appetite so that they go out and hunt and find more food. So the reason why we say a pound, and I would say a pound and a half would be max, is because that gives your body time to adapt over a period of time. Of course, with our weight loss medications, people are losing much quicker now, which is a big issue with regain. And so, what I recommend is people then stay on the medication for a long period of time, sometimes up to 3-6 years, to give their body a chance to adapt to their new size. But to go back to this deficit that we are creating, it's not until you compound that 3,500 calories under what your body needs to maintain its current weight that you are going to lose 1 true pound of body fat. You may get on the scale day to day, and it may, I gained 1 this day, I lost 1 this day. Well, physiologically, that's not possible. That could be water weight. There could be many reasons why that scale is fluctuating, mostly fluid day to day. But if I can get somebody to be under what their body needs to maintain their current weight to the tune of 500 calories a day over 7 days, that's 3,500 calories, and people are losing about a pound a week.
Okay.
But here's the important part. You cannot lose if you're not in a calorie deficit. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. Nothing else matters, but you have to be in a calorie deficit. So then when everybody is starting to present, well, all this other stuff that everybody's talking about is just muddying the water, and it's really doesn't matter. The podcast that you and I were guests on recently, he said that one of his friends reported that you could eat right before bed, and as long as you are still in a calorie deficit, that doesn't matter.
I wouldn't agree with that physiologically at all.
Right. Well, so if you think about it, if we just are thinking in our silo of calories in versus calories out, there's my point. Contextually, yes, he's correct. But when we know metabolically and physiologically what is happening when you are eating that late at night, and we're going to kind of get into this, then we know that can make it very difficult for you to stay in that calorie deficit that evening, the next day, etc.
But also muddies the water, and I could physiologically walk you through the example, which I won't do now, why eating late at night won't be the most effective way, calorie deficit or not, because the way you're metabolizing those calories is way different at night, after 9 o'clock, right before bed, whenever, than if you were doing it in the middle of the day.
Absolutely. And that's why I always say the calories are a calorie outside the body, but once they're inside the body, we're talking metabolic changes that do matter. Mm-hmm. And it's mostly about your ability to stay in that calorie deficit. There's a lot of things that are working for you or working against you if you are, like, let's say, eating late at night or et cetera. So we're going to get into that. But first and foremost, when we're talking weight loss, that 3,500 calorie deficit has to be there. And that yes, in that one particular, it has to happen. But then when we start to get over here in the middle where we start to talk about preventing disease, this is where we start to cross over. So a lot of people are presenting and kind of marrying information between preventing disease and weight loss. And this is where it's getting muddy, okay? So let's just keep this very clear. You have to be in a calorie deficit if you want to lose weight. End of story. Mm-hmm. Now, this stuff in the middle makes a difference metabolically, and by getting this right, it can help you not only achieve it, but sustain it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I wanted to go over today.
Okay.
So the first ones are your metabolic health. If your microbiome is, if you have what we call dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of good bacteria and bad bacteria, we've reported a lot on microbiome and its correlation to your ability to lose weight, your ability to fight disease, etc.
Depression.
Yeah. I mean,
anxiety,
it's now
everything.
Correlated to everything.
Immunity, autoimmunity, super important.
So let's say I'm practicing and this person is 100% because I've done metabolic testing on them and we are measuring every morsel that they put in their mouth. They are 100% in a calorie deficit, but they're not losing. Mm-hmm. That's when you get into, okay, what are our metabolic parameters that we need to assess to figure out why that is?
That's pretty common, isn't it? Where you have patients who are like, okay, I've been doing this. I'm in a deficit, but I'm not losing.
Yes.
I'm working out. I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm not losing.
And a lot of it could be their perception of what they're doing. But then when we really drill down, they're realizing, oh, I'm eating a lot more than I thought I was. Or, there's a plethora of reasons. But I can think of one of our friends recently who I had been helping for a year or so try to lose. And really, she just wasn't losing. And I could tell by looking at her, she looked inflamed to me. Mm-hmm. And I sent her and had her do some GI mapping.
How does somebody look inflamed? People might listen
puffy.
To that and go,
yeah,
okay.
She just looked puffy. She just looked like, I could just tell she was just puffy and hanging on to fluids that, And
then also complaining about some skin issues, if I recall.
Yep.
Right.
And
which typically, if you have a skin issue, unless it's a bad sunburn, it's typically
your gut
inside out versus outside in. So topical creams and all that, it's only going to be a symptom relief.
Yeah. So I had been telling her I would like to do some GI mapping on you because I feel like metabolically there's something going on here that's preventing you from being able to lose. And sure enough, once she corrected all that, now she's losing. So these things here, microbiome, sleep, stress, hormones, those are big ones. Mm-hmm. If we don't have those in line, they can trump our ability to lose weight. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about stress. Mm-hmm. If you have to understand, stress is meant to be a good thing. It's meant to warn us that something's wrong and get yourself out of that situation. Mm-hmm. So your cortisol level is meant to go up, but it's meant to come back down because you're not meant to sustain life in a chronic cortisol elevation.
Okay, so before you go on with that, just give me a quick overview. Cortisol. What is it? Where should it be? What does it do?
Cortisol is our stress hormone. Mm-hmm. It is meant specifically to warn us of danger or, give you energy so that you can get out of a situation. It shunts your focus to
fight or flight.
Yeah, exactly. It is meant to be acute. Mm-hmm. It is not meant to be chronic.
So in a normal world, it's up a little bit in the morning because your body's trying to wake you up to get you going. If you're out in the hunter-gatherer days and a bear approaches you, it's going to spike because it's your fuel to fight or flight, fight or get the heck out of there.
And guess what? When you see said bear, mm-hmm. what do? You run.
You run or you hopefully don't die and get eaten. But
right.
If you run and get away and then it's over, cortisol comes back down after some time at normal level. It doesn't stay up all day, then down a little bit, then up and down a little bit.
Yeah, and the key is that you ran away and you expended that shunting of energy to get you out of the situation. Whereas when we are as sedentary as we are in the world that we live in, we're driving in our car and our cortisol goes up because somebody cuts us off, and then we just sit. And then we go in the office and your boss makes you mad and you sit. And so because the way we live, our cortisol is staying elevated. So what happens when cortisol is elevated? Cortisol is saying, everything stop. We are shunting our focus to fight or flight. No metabolism is happening. You are not digesting. You are not. So I want you to think about why that would not be good if we are not just in an acute cortisol situation, but in a chronic where people are stressed all day, every day, and their cortisol is just perpetually saying, hi. It is going to cause issues with their digestion, with their metabolism, with everything. I mean, if somebody is majorly stressed, the focus is getting you out of that situation. Right. The focus is not getting you to be in a calorie deficit or whatever, that's not, your body's super smart. It's meant to be protective. So if somebody's super stressed, one of the first things we need to do is correct that before we try to get into a calorie deficit, because that's going to trump that all day long.
Right. So let me give an example really quick. So recent story post I put up, I was just doing some HIIT cardio in my office after work yesterday, and I was just doing some kettlebell swings, and it was high intensity. It was HIIT training. I was going minute on, 30 seconds off, and single arm kettlebell heavy. Mm-hmm. And somebody messaged me. It was a woman, said, I'm trying to lose weight. I don't know who, it was just a random follower. I'm trying to lose weight, and I've been doing a lot of HIIT training. I was told I should be doing this 4 to 5 days per week. What are your thoughts, Dr. Rob? And I said, well, I don't like to give advice randomly without knowing your situation, but she told me she was in her mid to late 40s. And the problem with HIIT training for somebody in their mid to late 40s is they're getting cortisol spikes, right?
Especially if it's very high intensity.
If it's very high intensity, there's spike in cortisol, which we know it can actually lead to more fat deposition. Yeah. So now the benefit of HIIT training is it turns on your metabolism later on during the day for 24 or 36 hours, depending on what research you read. So you are getting a metabolic bump from it, which means you're going to burn more calories. But if your cortisol is high 4 or 5 days a week and you're not recovering from said cortisol spike, you're in a calorie deficit, guess what? You're not going to lose that fat because your body's going to go, ooh, I need that. Hold on to it. I need that for the next cortisol spike. And now you wonder why you're not losing that little pooch around your waist.
Exactly. So we've already talked about microbiome can have an effect. Cortisol, stress can have an effect. Sleep. I mean, people don't understand how foundational this is to our being. We need food, we need water, we need sleep. You cannot live without those three. Mm-hmm. So we are running the rat race and we're fitting everything else in, and it's really to the detriment of our sleep. And we've done a whole podcast on sleep and the importance of it and sleep hygiene. So I'll refer everybody back to there for the specifics. But one of the things that we reported is that when you are not getting enough sleep, it can increase these are studies that show that people eat 30% more the next day after they have not slept well.
Do they know the mechanism of that?
It's just you're trying to get more energy, and it's giving you appetite so that you can eat it.
Gotcha.
It's perceiving that you need more energy.
Gotcha.
Because you're tired. So again, yes, we need to be in a calorie deficit, but if you're not sleeping, that's making it difficult for you to achieve the calorie deficit and stay in a calorie deficit. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's important to keep these other metabolic parameters in line, in keep it in your head, because it's hard. It starts to like all go together. Like, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? Should I be doing that? I think if you just start at the very beginning, food, water, sleep, analyze those first. Those are your big ones, right? And then there's probably exercise that's in there because we are not farmers and we are not moving all day like we used to. So that's kind of where we start. Okay, so let's get back to this. So the first thing that you want to do is analyze your metabolic health. You want to make sure your microbiome, your stress, your sleep, your hormones. If your hormones are wackadoodle, just ask a mid-aged woman who is in perimenopause or menopause if they are easily able to lose weight.
Yeah, the answer would be no.
Yeah. So your hormones are going to trump that and make it very difficult to do. So even if you are in a calorie deficit, if we don't do some things to fix some of those parameters, it is going to make it extremely difficult for you to lose and actually stay in that deficit, quite frankly. It's, when you physiologically are getting signs that you're hungry, that you need to eat more, it's very difficult to find the willpower to stay where you need to be when those physiological signs are saying eat, 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 eat.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to be protective. Okay, so let's move on. The next one is you've got to meet your nutritional needs. People don't, I think we've forgotten that food is meant to nourish, that food is not just entertainment and something that tastes good and a fun place to meet friends and socialize. And it is all those things. But honestly, the reason why we have food is to nourish our bodies. And your body needs specific things to stay alive and needs specific things to stay well. So your body is super smart. If you're not giving your body what it needs nutritionally, it's not stupid enough to send signs of satiety. And when I say satiety, that means making you feel full, and satiated is a word that comes from, meaning, I don't know, I always have a hard time explaining what that word means. Imagine just having eaten a turkey dinner and you feel completely satiated, you're full, you don't even think about food. Because there are some people who are full but are still thinking of food.
Yeah.
Satiated means that you're not only full, but you're not thinking of food.
Stomach is signaling to the brain that, hey, I'm full, don't put anything else in me, I'm satisfied, I want to go just relax now.
And you're not thinking
close
at all.
Close the kitchen. Yeah, exactly.
So when your body is not getting nutritionally what it needs, or even when it's dehydrated, it will send false signals of hunger saying, wow, you've only had donuts today and I haven't gotten anything I need, so I'm not dumb enough to send you signals of satiety because then you're going to stop eating. I'm going to send you hunger signals so that you go back and try this again because I need nourishment. So you have to realize that when you are meeting your nutritional needs, so this is where we get into eating the fruits and vegetables and all of the things that our body needs to take care of itself, that's where this comes in. When people say it doesn't matter what you eat, as long as you're in a calorie deficit, you will lose.
See, I think
I just disagree with that, because if we're talking outside the body, I get that, but inside the body, you are working against so many metabolic, physiological things that are trying to protect you that it's near impossible to sustain that.
Right. And what's the bottom line? Okay, people want to look good, they want to look better, they want to feel better, they want to be able to do what they want to do physically, all of the above, okay? But what's the bottom line? If you're not healthy, you're not doing anything that you want to do because your body's going to drag you down to the lowest common denominator of how you feel. So yeah, you could eat donuts all day and be in a calorie deficit. Will you lose weight? I don't know, probably not, maybe, but you're going to feel like absolute crap. And you're really creating a situation to sabotage what is happening inside from everything we've talked about. So I wish we could change the narrative from just, oh, I need to lose some pounds. Okay. How about you need to get healthier? How about that? Like, can't tell you how many people come into me and say, oh, my doctor tells me I need to lose 30 pounds. How about the doctors start telling people you need to get healthier? Okay. Not just lose pounds, get healthier. Because even if you're not in a calorie deficit, but you're eating well with your food timing, you're eating well with your proportions, you're eating appropriate amounts of fat, protein, good kind of carbohydrates, you're going to actually feel better, which is going to make you want to move more. And guess what? Your caloric expenditure is going to go up. So you're naturally going to make it easier now for you to be in a calorie deficit.
And that's really the point to my visual, and we're going to try to make it where it's easy to see. But the whole point is, yes, a calorie is a calorie, but all of these other metabolic parameters make a difference in and then cross over to. So if we're going over to preventing disease, which clearly, what does it matter if you are this great weight at the expense of your health and you can't sustain that and live that way?
Right.
So what is the point of losing weight if you're not doing it in a way that protects your health?
100%.
So then it crosses over to when we get into preventing disease, we're talking specifically controlling oxidative stress and inflammation. This all goes back and forth. That's where everybody's starting to hear about decreasing ultra-processed foods and decreasing sugar and bad oils versus good oils and all of this, right? So it starts to muddy the waters. But right. I think what I want to do is make this very clear. If you're trying to lose weight, yes, it is that you have to be in a calorie deficit. But by taking into account all of these other metabolic parameters, it is going to then ensure that the end game is that not only you are a healthy weight, but you also are cellularly healthy and preventing disease.
Right.
Okay. So let's keep going here. What is going to help everybody stay in a calorie deficit? It is by creating that satiety. Mm-hmm. So you're going to nourish. They're going to, at a very baseline, meet their body's nutritional needs. And so your body's going to be firing on all cylinders saying, hey, thanks. I don't need to give you false senses of hunger to take you back to food because I got what I needed. Right. Okay. How do I achieve and sustain that satiety? Well, you have to be aware of your hunger hormones and so you have a hunger hormone, which is ghrelin, and you have your satiety hormone, which is leptin. And your hunger hormone it's literally like just saying it's a good thing. You need nourishment is what that one is saying. Like you need either fluid or you need nourishment. Okay, great. I'm going to go to food. Didn't quite get it right. I ate donuts. Well, if nutritionally your body did not get what it needed, then your body's not stupid enough to say, okay, now I'm going to secrete leptin, so you stop.
Yeah.
Another thing to understand is it's a cycle. So ghrelin starts it, and then you only when ghrelin initiates can leptin be secreted. So I want you to think about that. If you're a perpetual snacker and you're not eating because you're actually physiologically hungry, your body doesn't have, if it didn't initiate with ghrelin, your body doesn't have the ability to secrete that leptin, so you know to stop.
Okay, so to put it in lay terms, you're bored, it's the evening, or you're at the office and you're grinding through a document and you're like, I'm not really hungry, but I feel like eating. Without that initial stomach growl that should initiate your hunger, you cannot release the hormone that makes you go, hey, dude, you're full, stop eating.
Correct. And I want you to think about this. I just hear this so much in my practice. Yeah, I had something salty and then I wanted something sweet. And then I had something sweet and then I wanted something salty. I just couldn't seem to find, like all night I just am looking. Well, it's because, one, there's a plethora of reasons that could be. But if that eating episode did not originate with ghrelin being released, meaning you are physiologically in need of nourishment, your body does not have the ability to tell you to stop. We got to get that right.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Huge.
Okay, so then moving on, so then we go to food. Well, what does that look like? Well, we know everybody's hearing, oh, high protein, high protein, high protein. Yes, correct. Let's just even talk about the thermodynamics of the said protein versus fat versus, you and I talked about this recently. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't, but I want you to give me a hint so I can get it.
Metabolically, it takes more calories to break protein down than it does carbohydrate or fat. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
So, in other words, like there's all these things that can help, mm-hmm. but the bottom line is if you're not in a calorie deficit, then you know what I mean? Like it's one of those crossover things. So all of these things matter. The protein, your nutrients, your good fats, so that helps you feel fuller, faster for longer. Fat physiologically floats to the top of your stomach, which can help you feel fuller for longer. Right. That's a big one. Fiber makes you feel fuller. It also helps lower your insulin and blood sugar level, which we'll get to that next. So that's a huge variable to controlling your appetite and how you metabolize and how you burn fat. So all of that plays a role. But that's metabolically. That's when those calories are in your body. That's what's going on behind the scenes.
Right. Gotcha.
Okay. So then we get into controlling your blood sugar. So when you spike your blood sugar, which is when you eat anything, your blood sugar is going to spike. Your pancreas has to secrete insulin. It comes and grabs the sugar that's in your blood and takes it to the cells so that it can be used properly. So the two do not function without each other. If you have sugar in your blood, your pancreas is going to secrete insulin, and that's the process that happens. We know that when your insulin is spiked, you are not burning fat. So another thing that I work with my patients on is controlling their blood sugar and insulin spikes, because the less that's happening throughout the day, the less false sense of hunger that they're going to get, because when their insulin is spiked, it can send signals, false senses of appetite as well.
Right.
In addition to, you are not burning fat during those times, which can make it harder to stay in this calorie deficit.
Right.
Okay. So again, we've done numerous talks on the blood sugar insulin subject, but just that is a variable. Some people, like you've got some people who just do that. Just control your glucose and you will lose weight.
Right.
That's not the complete picture.
Right.
That's the point of this, is just realizing you do have to be in a calorie deficit. But if we can also control your blood sugar and insulin, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to stay there.
Right. So again, preventing the insulin spike. Okay. Again, if you don't know physiology, which a lot of people don't know, but your insulin, think of it as the canoe that the glucose jumps onto and pulls the glucose into the cell, or opens up the door for the canoe to pull the glucose into the cell. But here's the thing. You can prevent it. Here's the thing. There's a lot of people online that will say, oh, prevent all those glucose spikes, no glucose spikes. Everybody's going to get a tiny little spike when they eat because you have to absorb that food, okay? But talk about timing what's on your plate and timing of what goes in your mouth to blunt the spike.
So I was just getting ready to say meal balance goes a long way here. So we know that just a carbohydrate by itself is a big spike, and then it comes right back down. If you add fiber, if it is a high fiber carbohydrate source, that spike comes down just in that. Not only that, but those little fiber guys are feeding the good bacteria in your gut. Again, metabolically, this is all correlated. So what's then, if you have a protein is the next one, that's the third lowest spike. And then fat actually doesn't spike your insulin at all.
Okay.
And thank you to the American Heart Association, who demonized fat. Yeah. And then we took fat out of everything and added sugar to it so that everybody could tolerate the taste of it. And then there's your obesity epidemic. So you need fat. Now, the type of fat absolutely makes a difference in your metabolic health.
Right. Pretty simple, right?
A fat is a fat calorically.
Yeah.
There are so many grams of fat, so many calories per serving, okay? So 9 grams per, what am I trying to say here? 45 calories per serving of fat, 9 grams of fat. That is what it is. Mm-hmm. Inside the body, if it's a bad fat, that's going to cause issue over here with the oxidative stress and the inflammation. Right. So that is definitely affecting our cellular health. Mm-hmm. So why, if you're trying to lose weight, would you not just make sure you're consuming a good fat that's not causing inflammatory response and oxidative stress to achieve that?
Olive oil, avocado oil, avocados,
nuts, seeds, etc.
Okay. Staying away from the canola oil, staying away from the sunflower oils and all of the stuff you see in almost everything.
Yeah, and we'll get there because we're going to talk about ultra-processed foods and all of that. But the point you had asked, how does balancing your meal make a difference in your blood sugar and your insulin spike? I always recommend that people get, it's protein first. So build your meal around protein because protein is naturally more satiating, okay? You're going to feel fuller, faster for longer when you're, minimum of 30 grams of protein, no matter your size. Female, male, no less than 30 grams of protein at each meal is what I suggest. Then I recommend you layer in a serving of good fat because that's going to help even lower that spike of blood sugar even further down when you add the fat. And then lots of fruits and vegetables or lots of veggies that are going to then bulk and fill you up, make you fuller, faster for longer. That in itself, properly balancing a meal can make a big difference in how easy it is to achieve that calorie deficit. How, if you're controlling your appetite, then you're not going to want more. And so that's helping you stay in that deficit.
Roger.
Okay.
Got it.
All right. So then we get to down here at the bottom is our zone 2 activity. And that is really where that 8,000 to 12,000 steps come in. I really encourage everybody to get the 10 a day. There are a lot of health reasons why, disease-wise. What we do know is that exercise isn't actually great for weight loss. And that may be shocking for a lot of people to hear. Because when you burn calories, you can so easily replace those with food that a lot of the times it's really hard to hit that deficit with just exercise. What we really tout exercise for is more about disease prevention. And there's a plethora of, obviously reasons that is. But when it comes to zone 2, specifically walking in that, you want to explain the differences?
Yeah, so zone 1 is you're out for a stroll. You're walking your dog, you're stopping while the dog sniffs the tree, and your heart rate is basically the same as when you're walking around your house. Zone 2 is more of a brisk pace, but you can still maintain conversation with somebody without the huff and puff.
Yeah, you're going at a clip, but you can still talk.
Yeah, that's your zone 2. And then zone 3 and 4, your higher intensity and then highest intensity, which are going to be your HIIT interval training in that zone 3 and 4, and then your zone 4 is going to be like to exhaustion basically. And you need those too because there's data that shows 4 minutes a day of HIIT training can be really great for disease prevention. Again, not awesome for weight loss, but really great for disease prevention.
And that's why this gets a little murky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's hard to keep it straight.
But again, something sorry to interrupt. Something just popped into my head that I want to use this analogy. You're gonna have an easier time keeping the pounds off if your system runs like a race car. If your system runs like a jalopy, like a piece of crap beater that has been through 3 teenagers and the 4th one is getting ready to drive it and all the hubcaps are off and the muffler's broken. If you want to drive that kind of body, I don't care what kind of calorie deficit you're in, you're not losing the weight you want to lose. And you don't have to be a super athlete for your body to run like a race car.
And you're not going to live long. You're going to have disease. So there's
another
that.
thing.
Yeah. So specific to this zone 2, the thing that is brilliant about our bodies is that you actually, like zone 2 is fat burning. Mm-hmm. You technically burn just fat during that time. Why? Think about this. You're a hunter-gatherer. You're out foraging, right? Like they have to have the energy to walk all day, every day to go find their kill. So your body is giving you that you're burning specifically fat during that time.
And there's physiologically the reason you're burning that fat too is it's a slower pace. So oxidative, well, we won't get into that. It's too physiological. But when you're burning fat down, it takes a little longer for your body to do it. And it's a little bit more of a complex process. So at a slower rate of burn, like a zone 2 cardio, it's more efficient. Now, when you get up into the zone 3 and 4, like you're sprinting or you're running away from a bear, you have stored glucose in the form of glycogen, which is in your muscles. It's like a fuel tank in your muscles and an extra fuel tank or reserve tank in your liver. That's what you burn for immediate fight or flight. That's what you burn for immediate need for fast-paced go.
And because we do not live in this situation where we are hunting and gathering all day or farming, that is why it is important for disease prevention to include some HIIT trainings in there, because it's good to get that heart rate up. Right. And, and it also, like you mentioned earlier, the HIIT training can help you burn more calories after you've done the actual activity. Mm-hmm. It all goes together. Mm-hmm. It all goes together. So here in the middle, that's specifically helping people get and stay in calorie deficit, but doing all that also helps prevent disease. Yep. All of that is good for also preventing disease. But specifically to control oxidative stress and inflammation, that's where you start to hear people talking about what types, like ultra-processed food, what types of oils, what types of foods you're putting in your body that are damaging your health at a cellular level. Mm-hmm. They're all the same calories. It can be a Kit Kat or it can be an apple, and they can be the exact same calories, okay? So that is calorie for calorie, but what that calorie does in your body metabolically, as well as at a cellular level, are two totally different things.
100%.
Okay. So decreasing ultra-processed foods, guess what? That's not only going to help you prevent disease, control oxidative stress and inflammation, but it's also going to help you stay in your calorie deficit, because you're giving your body what it needs as far as nourishment. You're not giving it a bunch of crap. Therefore, it's rewarding you by saying, okay, thank you. I'm going to give you this feeling of full. You can stop. Okay, so it's a double whammy there. Decreasing sugar. Well, we already said what your blood sugar is going to do if you just eat nonstop sugar. Right. Not only is it detrimental to your cells, that sugar, it's damaging, but it also causes appetite issues, blood sugar issues, etc. So again, it is specific to oxidative stress and inflammation. However, if you decrease sugar, it's going to definitely help you stay in a calorie deficit. And then the seed oils. So this is where, yes, a fat is a fat, but not really. A fat is a fat outside the body, but inside the body, it's completely different. And this is where, go back and listen to our podcast on seed oils, where the processing can make a big difference in what that particular seed oil is doing inside your body. Focusing on monounsaturated fats like olive oil, avocado oil, that is your best bet, because guess what? Then you don't have to worry about the way it's manufactured, etc. Okay. And then increasing exercise, because we know exercise absolutely is one of the biggest disease prevention mechanisms that there is. You want to explain that?
Well, it's everything. We're race cars, okay? And if you want to maintain the way the race car is supposed to function, you have to rev the engine, period, the end. You said something to me years ago about how when you have an inflammatory process in your body, it makes things sticky.
Yep.
So if you picture the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz when he was all stuck and he was he could move, and Dorothy picked up his little can and went kicking, 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 and put it in his joints, and he was now lubed up and ready to roll. I mean, it's no different. I mean, it's a crude analogy, but that's really how it works. You want your body to be lubed up and slippery. Okay. You want your vessels to be smooth and pumping blood. You don't want stuff stuck in them. And really interestingly enough, in my world, people who come in with knee arthritis and are told, oh yeah, don't move very much because it's going to hurt. Well, it's the worst freaking advice you can give, because there's something in the joint called a synovial membrane, and the synovial membrane is inside the joint, and it is the oil producer. So the more you move said joint, it stimulates the synovial membrane to release synovial fluid, which, guess what, makes the joint slippery, and it helps with the inflammation. So everything that we have been doing in the last 10 to 20 years, especially since, 5 years ago, I don't even want to say the word of what that bad thing that happened to us internationally with that virus, we were taking people who were already not moving very much, and then we made them stay home. And guess what? They moved even less, because for some people, the only movement they were getting was getting ready in their house, moving around a little bit, taking a few hundred steps, few more hundred steps to their car, driving to work, walking around the office. Now none of that is happening. So we've completely changed what we were supposed to be doing as humans into doing the exact opposite. I
actually did a presentation on it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
When was that?
It was in the hospital because everybody was gaining weight.
Yeah.
And
can't imagine
I
why.
actually calculated how many calories they were missing out on by just
Do you remember what that
being
was?
quarantined. I'll have to go back and find the presentation, but it was quite you don't realize, just even in activities of daily living, getting up, getting in the shower, going to work, walking from the parking lot into the building.
I would assume it's several thousand steps, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Isn't it something like the average person going to work and going to the grocery store, even like the minimum steppers are still doing 3,000 a day? I feel like that's a number I read somewhere. Let's double check on that.
That's actually considered sedentary.
3,000.
Yeah, 3,000.
Okay, so that's your minimum. So let's go now from sedentary at 3,000 to 500.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, because unless you live in a mansion, most people live in average houses. You're not walking that much.
Yeah.
So why is exercise disease prevention? Because it's challenging the system and lubing up the system.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a simple, crude way to do it, because I can't get into physiology and immunology here, but everything exercise does stimulates the way your body is designed
at a cellular
level to reproduce itself, to stimulate itself, to perform the basic mechanisms to keep you alive.
Yeah.
That's why if you look at, and I know there's some controversy about the blue zones now and all that, but that book, The Blue Zones, in the early 2000s, then the Netflix show, but really the consistency of the people who live longer around the planet is they eat better, they have social interaction, and then they move every single day.
Most all of them are still out farming to get their food, or they're walking down to get their coffee, and then meeting their friends for something social, and then they're walking to the market, and then they're walking back up the hill. All of that stuff plays a role. Do you want to know the coolest part about all of this? One thing we didn't realize, one thing I did not mention, was decreasing toxic burden is a big one as far as disease prevention goes. I mean, we would be negligent for not mentioning that when we're talking about disease prevention. And what we're talking about specifically with that is all the toxins and dyes and crap that's in food currently. The way we are going to decrease the burden on your liver, which your liver is the one that's got to get rid of all that, is by minimizing those toxins that we're consuming.
Also storage, right? You removed glass from our house before we
Plastic.
you removed, you removed plastic from our house 10, 15 years ago before we even moved to Florida. And I remember coming home one day going, where's all the Tupperware? And you're like, no more. That's when everybody was talking about PFAs and phthalates and all that. And so that's another part of the toxic burden is, don't put your food in a plastic microwave container and put it in the microwave and cook it. I mean, you're literally baking plastics into your food.
This is a big topic. We probably should do a podcast on it because it's a big one. But that we would be remiss to not mention decreasing toxic burden is a big way to prevent disease.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
but then the coolest thing.
Oh, yeah. Did we not talk about the coolest thing? What's the coolest thing?
The coolest thing is that our GBNO protocol addresses all of this.
That is pretty cool.
I realized that once I was done creating all of this, and I was like, okay, so how can we give everybody a solution to this? I know, for instance, my videos cover every single bit of this. And then I know yours covers all of it as far as the outside in for exercise.
Yeah, so starting by taking it down to the basic level where everybody is, moving the certain areas that are designed to move, stabilizing the certain areas that are designed to stabilize, getting people out of pain so they can move better, and then adding muscle, and then tying it all in together. So,
and from the inside out, I cover all of this. Like every bit of this is, I think it's like 29 different videos that address all of that and exactly how to properly balance your meals, how to control your blood sugar, all of that stuff. Yep. So check that out on heydrrob.com. All of our information is there, and that's an easy resource to find the Get Better Not Older protocol, which can be your solution. Following that can be your solution for not only getting and remaining in a calorie deficit if that's what your goal is, but most importantly, getting better, not older from the inside out.
And how about this? How about not always thinking of it in cycles? How about not thinking of it as, okay, I just made it through the Christmas holidays or the holiday season, depending on your religion, and I put on 8 pounds. How about all year long, maybe not always being in a calorie deficit, but just good behaviors? Just take your 10,000 steps a day. Make it your lifestyle change. Go to the gym or lift weights at home. Do some resistance training 3-4 times a week. Eat well most of the time and cheat. I mean, we cheat. Well, you don't as much because your food allergies, but I mean, I crush burgers on the weekend and we have drinks with friends. We don't do it every night. We don't even do it every weekend, but don't think to live this way, you've got to deny yourself all the stuff you love. It's
about choices.
But it's also why do we call it a treat? Because it's a treat, because it's supposed to happen once in a while, right?
Yeah.
Don't leave Oreos in your pantry.
That's part of my protocol as well, is talking about behaviorally, what can we do that makes following a healthier lifestyle easier?
Right.
Because that's a big one. I think even Eric has brought that up. Like, I know I should be doing this, but what is going to make me want or keep doing this? And I address that in the protocol as well.
I'll tell you what the main thing is that will want people to keep doing this is people. I don't think people have any idea how crappy they feel at baseline.
It's true.
I can't tell you how many people I treat and train who they come in for a session, they go, I feel good. How'd you feel over the last few days? Great. I'm sleeping better. I can move. My knees don't hurt. And I think the vast majority of people think they're supposed to feel like crap all the time.
My very favorite is to have worked with a patient where we kind of just really start to, I just say, give me 30 days. Let's just start to unravel, get you to where you're feeling better, give them different products to try so that they, that's the thing. It's about choices. It's it's not about giving up the things you love. It's just about finding healthier options.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I do. But I love it when they go on a cruise and they're feeling really good, and then they're stuck on a cruise with all the crappy food, and they literally cannot wait to get home to start eating better again because they used to feel like they were on a cruise all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And didn't have the perspective of what it feels like to feel so good.
Absolutely.
So I love that. Okay, we got to wrap up today.
Can I say one more thing? if people understand that it's not about their age, this is what I want to get in 2025. I want to get this out of people's heads. Just because you're older doesn't mean things are going to worsen. You have to put a little more effort in. That's why we call it the GBNO show. That's why I've been saying for years, get better, not older. You got to work a little harder at it. But if your doctor says, oh, you got bad knees, you should not do blah, 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 I want you to find another doctor or go to somebody who knows how to address that. Because if you buy into, oh, I just have bad feet chronically, you know what? You probably have bad shoes is what it is, unless you've smashed your feet in an accident, okay? But I want people to stop buying into this, oh, I'm just older and it's supposed to be that way, because it's not.
Well, I think we see it in the community that we live in.
100%.
That was built 20 years ago. And so a large majority of these individuals are getting up there in age and they all can barely move.
Yeah, it's horrible to see. And they're not that old.
No.
I've got a guy that I'm treating right now in his early 70s, and he's amazing. He golfs, he does athletic stuff, and he's kind of like Mark Sisson. He looks like that, and he wants to know ways to help him. He's got some stiffness in his hands, which happens. So I've given him some things to mitigate that. If people just knew it was out there, we'd be changing the aging process from getting all bent over and falling over and breaking your hip to falling over and getting up and not worrying about it.
Guess what?
What?
It's out there.
It is.
It's called heydrrob.com and the Get Better Not Older lifestyle.
Nice, good way to end. All right. On that note, with a shameless plug.
It's not, though.
No, I know.
Like legitimately, if people want the information that they need to get better, not older, it's there. That was our whole goal.
Yep. Just got to be willing to do it.
That's right.
All right. For my awesome wife, Shannon, I'm Dr. Rob signing off. And until next time, remember, get better, not older.